Hey there, Vanagon Addicts. This is Ken Wilford here. I'm calling at you live and direct from Naples, or no, I'm sorry, not Naples, Fort Myers, Florida. Hope you guys are having a great day. We have been having a great week down here on our work vacation or whatever you want to call it. And so we just thought we would have a live stream. A bunch of people were asking me, are we going to do it this week? Are we going to do it this week? And so I said, you know what, let's just go ahead and do it. So I hope you guys can join us and be out here with us today. As always, every week, I want to thank our patrons on Patreon. We got Peter Benici, Chris Snyder, Eric Schneider. Those guys, we appreciate them a lot. We appreciate also some of you other folks that always try to be boosters to us, like Steve DeRuiter. He's always, trying to be a friend to us. I definitely appreciate him. And just all you other guys. So hopefully you guys can be with us today. Let me see if I can get to the chat and stuff and see if I can see that. But I had a few things I wanted to talk about. All right, let me get back to here. I'm trying to use this little mini laptop. So or something. That's what's happening that way. Let me mute this so I don't have to hear echoings. Okay. So I'm into the chat. I think I should be able to see that. But you guys are able to come along with us today. I'm down here in Fort Myers. We're actually at a rental home down here. And I see Peter Benici is joining us here. And the weather's great down here. We had really a couple warm days. And then today it is probably around 75, but it's pretty windy today. So not really beach weather. We went to the beach a couple of days and checked that out. I will say New Jersey beaches are great. So it's actually, it's hard to find stuff here that's just as good as the New Jersey stuff. I know it sounds weird, but if you've ever been to the beach in Cape May, it's pretty awesome. So just letting you know. But we did get to go to Fort DeSoto, which was a fort that was built for the Spanish-American War. And that was pretty cool. And that beach there was really nice, too. So we got to see some of that. I see Steve DeRuiter. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you with us as well. And so we've just had a relaxing week. I've tried to kind of, do orders as they came in as much as I can. But, for the most part, just try to take a break and relax. It's been stressful with my dad being sick and then other things going on. So we needed some time away. Me and my wife and my daughter Leah and Rachel have been helping out a lot. So they do this. So that's cool. And like I said, you guys have been good. You've been ordering stuff this whole week while I've been down here. So that lets me be able to, do this and not worry about, that I'm going broke and stuff while I'm doing it, because, that wouldn't be good. So anyway, we did get to take a trip up to the Tampa area. That was the business part of this trip. Went up to the Tampa area and sat down with a guy at a place called Green Life. And we got to talk to him about the batteries we were talking to you guys about. We kind of have like two phases of things we're working on. Phase one is going to be a 50 amp hour battery that you can buy off of the shelf right now. And I actually purchased one. Going to be installing it into a van, testing it over the next few weeks or so, and along with a special charger unit that we also bought. And then I'll let you guys know how we make out with it. And then phase two is going to be, we're making a kit to go along with that charger and the battery, and starting to sell that as a, basically a kit you can just pop in your van and start using it. So I talked to the battery manufacturer. I mean, the awesome part about being here and talking to him is I get to meet them face to face, talk about what's going on. They basically have a 5-year warranty on the batteries. So that's important to me. I wanted to have something that we can sell that I know there's people standing behind it. And so that I got a good feeling from talking to Matt over there at Green Life. And so I'm hoping that we can, be able to get that going here pretty soon. So that was our part of our trip. The price is expensive on the batteries. I see what Steve's saying. And Peter, my dad is slowly getting better over time. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. If you pray, definitely keep him in your prayers because it is helping. He's getting slowly better. As far as the cost of the batteries, expensive. If, again, you don't think about the fact that they can last many, many times longer than lead acid batteries. So you have to kind of look at the big picture. If you're going to buy a lead acid battery and get 400 cycles out of it, and 400 more cycles, you're going to need another one. Okay, so 400 cycles, depending on how you use it, it could be a year, could be a couple years. I would say your max is going to be 4 years, and you're going to be getting another one. With the lithiums, you're talking more. They have a 5-year warranty. That's going to be your minimum lifespan. Most likely, they will last much longer than that. Their cycles can be anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000. They've been doing stress tests on them. So, you're either getting 5 times as much life or 10 times as much life. And the price is not that much more. It is more, but it's not, 10 times more. It's not even 5 times more. So that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So it's either pay now or pay later. Plus, another big plus, okay, and I mentioned this last time we talked about the batteries. When you go to recharge a lead acid battery, you are looking at, you can only use 50%, so half, so whatever it's rated for, you're only going to get half of the use out of it. And then the other problem is the charging. To properly recharge it takes 2 days of charging because it has to bring it up to a certain level, and then it has to change out charges, and it brings it up to another certain level, and then change out. It takes 2 days. The ones that we're going to sell, it's going to be a 20 amp charger. That battery is 50 amp hours. So you do the math. It can recharge that battery in a little over 2 hours, and it will be fully charged and ready to go again. You will not be damaging it. You will not be hurting it. So that's a big plus to me. Another big plus is, a lot of your vans get stored over the winter. If you have a lead acid battery, every month that it sits, it is losing 30% of its charge. So that's why you can have a lead acid battery, have it sit in your garage, not doing anything, not hooked up, just sitting there. And you go to use it, and it's dead. And you're like, what the heck? I haven't had this hooked up. I did the same thing. I've unhooked battery terminals on batteries, left them in vans. I'm like, okay, when I go to, get this van going again, I'll just hook it up. It'll be boom. It'll be fully charged, ready to go. No, the battery will be completely dead or dead enough so it won't start just because it sat. And you're like, what the heck? And that is the way lead acid batteries are. The lithiums are not like that. They can sit for an entire year, and they will lose less than 5% of their charge. So in other words, you put your van up for the winter, you don't have to put a charger on it, okay? You just let it sit there. You can unhook it so there's nothing draining it or whatever, but when you go in the spring, hook it back up, whatever it was at when you unhooked it, boom, it's back, okay? So there's definitely some advantages. I feel like as time goes on, the price point will be coming down, possibly. And so to be, we'll have what you call early adopters. That's where kind of we're at right now. We're still in early adopter stage, but the price is almost, to the point where I think normal people will see the value of it. So that's why we have been excited about it. I really feel like we're on the cutting edge of this whole situation, and I'm hoping it's going to be, a big seller for us. Peter, I don't know if it would be worth the freight to send to Australia. One of the problems is that it is listed as a hazardous, substance or hazardous object, or however you want to say it. It's considered hazardous. So because of that, it makes it a little more tricky to ship and get from point A to point B. The guy that we talked to, they have them in a warehouse. They receive them. They store them there. I may pre-buy a bunch of them to get a better price and pass it on to you guys. But the problem you run into is with shipping it, hazardous materials, sometimes, like all the different countries have different rules about that. So here in the U.S., it has been declared hazardous just because in the early days they had some problems with them catching on fire and burning up and that kind of thing, and people got scared. The new ones, like the ones we sell, they are pretty bulletproof. Like, they're actually made out of steel casements. They have steel casings, and then the sides are steel. The thing's bolted together. I mean, it's definitely very robust, and it's made to be in a vehicle. So that's impressive to me. I saw the battery on the interior of it, and it looked very well made. And also there's a thing called a BMS, which basically monitors the batteries, and if there's any issues where it might cause a chain reaction and explode, it basically shuts everything off so it can't do it. So, I think maybe in the future they will re-evaluate whether it should be a volatile or whatever thing in the future. But for now, I think we're going to start out with shipping from this one particular supplier and see what happens. Okay, so that's basically what's happening with us. We got to go up there. We got to see the place, Green Life Batteries, and we got to talk to Matt, the guy who's been running. He's been in the lithium battery field for about 10 years, which is a really long time since it's a very young field. And he's worked with racing companies because originally the only people that were buying it were race car people. So he got to be involved in that back in the day and got to, get involved that way. So that's basically what's going on. I did want to share some funny stuff with you guys. All right, so go through all that stuff. Let me go ahead and screen share if this thing will do it. And I'll show you something I read about this week. It's pretty hysterical. Let me go to here. So I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Did you guys see this? The Thai military, uses the Volkswagen 181 as a parade vehicle when they're doing military parades. If you guys don't know what the Volkswagen 181 is, it's also called the Thing. If any of you have ever owned a Thing, go ahead and leave us a comment on that. But it's pretty funny to me. The Thai military is using the Volkswagen Thing 181 as a parade vehicle. There's a bunch of pictures on here on Jalopnik again. This guy here is basically Thailand's like supreme leader dude now. He has had a coup against the president and took over the government in like 2014. But here he is, super serious, super important guy in Thailand. Got the whole army behind him and, can just shoot you in the face if you don't agree with him and all this other stuff. And he's standing up and riding in a Volkswagen Thing. Okay, and you can see the military has multiple of these. They use them for parade purposes. The other funny part is that in this article, it talks about other governments that actually still use these for for their military. So they actually made them from 79 to 69 to 72 in Germany. They were modeled after, of course, the Kübelwagen. You guys may have heard of that. That's like the old German Jeep from World War II. They modeled them after that. They were basically just supposed to be something that took up the gap because they were coming up with this thing called a Europa Jeep back in the day. I guess it was like supposed to replace the U.S. made Jeeps in the European countries. And so they came up with this 181 and, just like, hey, buy this for a few years until the Europa Jeep gets done. And then apparently the Europa Jeep turned into one of those like albatross projects that never got completed. It got canceled. And the 181 production moved to Mexico. And then also, I think Brazil is the ones that we got. So here in the States, the 181s that you would normally see, the Thing, they call it the Volkswagen Thing, of course, that was made in Brazil. So, I've seen the Brazilian-made ones. They're not that great. You can see one mod right here. Or here's the driver anyway, but you can see the super mod is there's no big wiper motor right in your face when you put the windshield down. This is what happens in the U.S. version. Whenever you put down your windshield, the wiper motor is directly in the face of the driver. So it kind of makes it so you don't really want to do that. I don't know why they designed it that way. But anyway, so that was just a funny thing I saw this week. Thai military is still using the 181 or AKA the Volkswagen Thing. Okay, so it's pretty hysterical. Now, these are the batteries I was talking about, Green Life GL50s. You can see the price, $650. Okay, the shipping on these is going to be $75. Okay, that's a lot, but that has to do with the fact that it's a hazardous material and the weight and stuff. Now, if you wanted to get two, it would be $75. So it's kind of a better deal to get two, but then it's super expensive. Now, also the price, $650. I'm probably going to be able to do it a little bit cheaper than that. Maybe around like $600 is going to be where I'm going to be able to do that. That plus the charger that we're working on, plus the kit that we're working on. It's going to be up there. Okay, it's not going to be super cheap, but believe me, it's going to be worth it. Just because now you're going to have a secondary battery system that actually does what you want it to do. That's always been the problem with the regular one. So let me see if I can stop the screen sharing somehow. I'm trying to. Unscreen share. Okay, there we go. Yay! So that was basically the couple things I wanted to show you guys. I know it's kind of weird. I'm on vacation. I should be able to just not have a live stream. But, people were asking me to do it. And so let me see if there's any questions. Of course, we're always here to help you guys out, answer questions and stuff. Let me go back to this. I see Brian Armstrong. Good to have you with us, Brian. And Brian bought a computer a couple days ago. That's on the way. So we're in good shape that way. Leah thinks it's awesome that the Thai military is using a Volkswagen Thing as a parade vehicle. I mean, here in the U.S., we wouldn't even think about using something like that. It would be, I don't know, do they even do that? The generals, they'd be riding in Hummers or something. I don't know. We don't even do these crazy parades, right? I don't know. Yeah, the 100 amp hour is super expensive. That's another thing that I should say. Oh, hey, Billy Shepard. So we do have a phase 2, which is a specially designed and created battery just for us. It's 100 amp hours, and it fits perfectly into, the hole under the seat. The bad part of that battery is I talked to Matt about it. He's like, yes, we can make it. Yes, we can do it and all that good stuff. But the price of it is going to be equivalent to the 100 amp hour that's already on Green Life site. So that battery is $1250. Okay, that's expensive. That's expensive. So I'm going to get this 50 amp. I actually had the 50 amp hour battery at the house. I haven't looked at it yet. But what I'm thinking is maybe 2 of those, okay, would fit under there. And if I could do them for $600 instead of $650, then it would make it, $1,200 for 2. At least it would be slightly cheaper, and you would get the same amount of capacity, 100 amp hours, which, just to be honest, most people or a lot of people don't need that much capacity. So, most people are going to be fine with 50 amp hours, believe me, because if you have 100 amp hour lead acid, then guess what? You actually only get to use 50 amp hours of it anyway. So, it's kind of like you're getting the exact same capacity in a smaller package. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And I really think it's going to be pretty sweet. Once we get it all set up, I can show you guys like how much this thing can run. I was talking to Mike Hanna the other day about the truck fridge and a Vitrifrigo. Okay, so a truck fridge, a Vitrifrigo, which is basically the 12-volt refrigerators everybody uses in their Vanagon. They basically are rated to run 2 amp hours or 2 amps per hour. That's their rating as they're being, on. So you can see if you were somewhere camping and you had your 50 amp hour lithium, right, you would have basically 20 something hours of capacity. I'm not going to say you have exactly half, like 25 hours, because it'll probably shut off at like 95% just to avoid any issues with the battery. So you would have easily 20 something hours of use with your fridge. Now factor in if you drive somewhere, this other charger is going to, top off your lithium battery as you're driving, or you can have an additional charger that you can plug into 110, or, this charger that we're fixing to sell actually has a solar controller built into it. So you could have a solar panel, and that could also be supplementing it. Like, to me, that would be the way to go. Have the solar panel, and when you're camping, you have that either on the van attached to the roof, or you have it sitting next to the van, and now you can, supplement your power. So you're getting like so many amp hours from your solar charger. Your fridge is using 2 amp hours, and so you can maybe have, many days worth of use out of it, depending on how you use your fridge. So that's the goal, is to try to get it so you can use a fridge with it. You can have some LED lights at night, and you can maybe recharge your cell phones, your laptops, and be able to use them for your nighttime's entertainment purposes. I mean, that's where I've got to too. I've seen people install DVD players and TVs in their Vanagon and stuff, and I don't really understand the purpose of it, because you could just have a laptop with a 17-inch screen or 15-inch screen even, or even a smaller screen. Like this one I'm talking to you guys on now is basically a mini laptop, has like a 10-inch screen, and you could watch your shows on that anytime you want. And then when you aren't using the van, there's nothing sitting in there just going bad from sitting in old age and stuff. So, I mean, that's my thoughts, is that just have something portable for if you want to watch movies. And then, of course, it has a battery built into it already. You can just recharge it and stuff. So anyway, all right, so does anybody have any Vanagon questions? I'm trying to think. This week, as we've been away on our trip, I got my first order from the Czech Republic. Sent that out. We also got our first order from Iceland. Sent that out. Well, no, Iceland one's not quite done yet. And, so it's kind of cool. We've been getting a lot of orders from Europe and across the pond and whatever. As the U.S. is kind of in its wintertime and it's slow, I guess these other guys in Europe and whatever, they must just be thinking ahead a little bit, like, hey, spring's going to be here soon. I better get my van ready to go, because, it's going to be, when it's time to go, I don't want to be working on it. So what am I trying to say? If you want to get some parts and work on your van, if you can, right now is the time to do it. Get this stuff done so that when it's springtime and the weather turns nice, you're not sitting there going, oh crap, I have to fix my clutch, or I have to do this or do that. Do it. If you can do it now, it's definitely good to go. So, all right, Andrew Smith says, I'm about to assemble my 1.9 engine. What case sealant would you recommend? Okay. I've been through a bunch of different case sealers, and I would say the one that I found to work the best and be the most consistent is the black sealant that comes in your head gasket or engine gasket set. So, most likely you've got either an L-ring or a Victor Rines engine gasket set for doing your rebuild. And you got two different sealants in there. You got your black and your yellow. And the black sealant, you want to use that on your case halves. And you also want to use it on the nuts that are inside the water jacket. Okay, you know what I'm talking about? So there's like these, when you put the two case halves together, there's nuts on the outside. Okay, so I put some on the case halves just on one side. Then I put the case halves together. Then you have these nuts that are they go inside like where the cylinders are on the one side. There'll be, I think, 6. And you want to seal them with the black sealant as well when you put them down and torque them down. And then once you do that, you only want to use the yellow sealant on the head nuts. Okay, so the actual nuts that secure the head to the engine, you use the yellow sealant on that. But I would use the black sealant that comes with your kit for everything else. Okay, and that is from talking with Bob Donalds, who was a rebuilder for many, many years, and also talking to Tencent, which is Chris Corkins. That's what he also recommends. And I've used a bunch of different things, trying different other products. They all have had leak issues. That has you'll probably still get like a little seepage here and there, but it'll seal pretty well for you. So that's what I recommend, Andrew. Hope that helps you out. And, it is kind of sad that I can't sell you something, but you probably already have that. So hope that helps you. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? That was a good question there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we were dealing with this week. Just trying to think. Down here in Florida, the traffic is terrible here in Fort Myers area. I think if I come down again, I would probably go over to Orlando area. I've been there a bunch of times with the kids, and we go, we rent a house and just have a nice pool at the house. Because like I said, the beaches I've been to here on the Gulf side, I went to Sanibel. That was cool. Had some nice shells and things. We went to, DeSoto State Park or County Park or whatever you want to call it. And that was nice, but I really didn't see anything that was any better than what I'm seeing in New Jersey at the really nice beaches there. What I am seeing is a crap ton of people. And that's the part I don't really like that much, when when it's mobbed with people. We went to one right here. We're staying in Cape Coral, and there was one here that, yeah, I hear you, Billy. There was one here that it's called the Yacht Club thing. It's right near Cape Coral. And it's just like this little tiny beach. It's probably like, I don't know, 1,000 feet or something long. And there was 1 million people on it. It was like super packed out with people. I'm just not into it. I don't know why people want to be there at that point. I'm not into that. So I would much rather be somewhere where I can look down the beach and see maybe a couple people in one direction, and look down the beach the other direction. Maybe I'll see like a little group of people that are sitting together because they want to, in like chairs and stuff. But to have like to trip over people. I mean, I don't go to beaches in New Jersey in the summer where there's packed because it's just dumb. I don't see the point of it. So Billy says Baja beaches are the only way to go. I've never been down there before. I'm going to have to check that out, Billy. I'll take your word for it. We did get to go to quite a few beaches on the West Coast when we took our family trip back in 2012. And I will say that the cool part I noticed about the beach on the West Coast is that you get to drive your vehicle out there and have like a bonfire and all that good stuff. I mean, here in New Jersey, no. And even in Florida here, I haven't seen anything that way either. So yeah, like Billy's saying, if you had a Vanagon, you can pull out onto the beach. You got your kitchen with you. You got your stuff with you. I mean, it would be awesome. So I'm hoping maybe one of these days we'll get back out there. But we were up in Sandy, Oregon, and went to the beach there. And you could drive right out there. People had Vanagons there. I actually stopped and talked to a guy that had a Vanagon while we were there, and he never got back to me. He has asked me quite technical questions about his van and all stuff, and he's like, I'm going to definitely buy stuff from you and all stuff. I'm like, okay. I gave him a card and never, ever called me back, but whatever. I see Costas here. He's good to have him with us. He's been trying not to message me too many times this week because he knows I'm on vacation, but that's okay. And so that's basically what's happening here at Vanagon. Of course, like I said, we're still working on – yeah, Leah's not here in Florida, Costa. She is in New Jersey. She's holding down the fort for me. So, again, we're hoping real soon that we're going to have our new website up. We showed that to you guys last time. I did have some guys send me in some vans, and so I want to appreciate you guys for doing that. Chuck Ott sent me in one today. I think Steve DeRuiter sent me one in the other day. And so, you know, I definitely appreciate you guys doing that. And hopefully we'll be able to, you know, modify them, stylize them a little bit, make them look into these little button things we need. And then we'll keep going with our contest. So thank you guys so much for that. And of course, Chris Snyder sent me one a couple weeks ago. That was real nice. All right, Peter has a question. What is the life of the main and big end bearings? Or if you do a top end rebuild, do you go all the way? Okay, so it really just depends on the mileage. Like if somebody comes in here with, and it also depends on what motor it is. So if it's a 1.9, they are very strong in the bottom end, and they're also very strong on the rod bearings. So if a 1.9 comes in here, it's got 150,000 miles on it. And I'm like, how much do you drive this? The customer's like, I just use it as an RV type vehicle. I'm like, let's just do a top end rebuild, new heads, and hopefully we'll get away with that. You know, hopefully the cylinders are fine. Usually they are. It hasn't been overheated. And you should be fine. You could easily get another 50,000 miles out of that motor, maybe even more before you need to rebuild it all the way. Now, if it was a 2.1, they had problems with the rod bolts. They're like a torque to yield rod bolt. And the bad part is they continue to yield after you torque them to their yield spec. And so the problem is over time, the rod bolts keep stretching and the rod main keeps getting bigger and bigger, just a little bit, but to the point a lot of times where you'll basically throw a rod. Like the rod bolt will break and you'll throw a rod. So once a 2.1 engine gets to about 150,000 miles and the person comes in and they're like, you know, we want to do an engine rebuild, a top end rebuild. I'm like asking them questions. I'm like, do you have the oil buzzer coming on? Yes. I'm like, you should just rebuild the entire motor because if we do the top end, it's going to put more pressure on everything else. It's going to, you know, give more compression in the engine, most likely. And, you know, the bottom end is getting tired. So that's what I recommend. For the 1.9s, you could possibly do top end and be good at 150. You have to look out for your head studs, though, because That's the new item that's causing issues now. Your head studs start stretching. Every time you torque them, they stretch. And then every time they get heat cycled, they stretch a little tiny bit. And over time, if they get pitted and stuff, you got to torque them down, they'll just keep torquing and torquing, and they will never stop. And then they'll snap off. You don't want that. So 1.9s, 150 would probably be, I would do a head gasket job and top end only. On the 2.1, 150 is like my cutoff. I say, no, we need to, get the whole engine rebuilt. And when I rebuild them or had them rebuilt, I try to use the rod bolts that do not stretch, because that was always the weak spot before. So they have another version of the rod bolts you can get that don't stretch. You torque them to your specification for the 1.9, and then they're fine. Okay, so that's my long-winded thing. I hope that answers your question, Peter. All right, do we have any other stuffing things? All right, so Billy says he's got a spare 1.9, a spare 2.1. Which should I rebuild? I would rebuild the 2.1. The 1.9s, they do have a solid bottom end for the most part. The problem you run into them after a while is that the rear main, where the flywheel is, it can pound that area out, and then that rear main can start kind of getting loose in the case and start causing wobbling issues and things like that. So that's the problem with the 1.9s. So in other words, if you're rebuilding a 1.9, you want to put the two case halves together like a test thing, and then mic where the rear main is. That's really your big concern on that, and see if it's still going to crush the rear main bearing good. If it's not going to, then you might want to have the case align board. And I mean, that's getting into a whole nother ball of wax. So the 2.1s don't have that problem. It's like I said, each one has its own weaknesses. The 2.1 weakness is the rod bolts. The 1.9 weakness is the rear main. So if I was going to rebuild one, I would be building a 2.1 and then just make sure the rods are rebuilt, and you should be good to go. Plus, you're going to get more torque and more horsepower as well. And you can also build your 2.1 into like a 2.2 and get a little bit more out of it that way. So on heads, Peter wants to know, do you rebuild the heads or replace with new? I personally like to use new heads unless you're rebuilding AMC heads. Okay. The original Volkswagen heads were problematic because they had thin spots where the heads were not cast properly, or they didn't have enough material. So over time, they'll crack. And especially if you put them back on and retorque them down, like maybe a month or so later, you'll start getting an external coolant leak, and it'll be because there's a crack in one of the heads. And believe me, I've been there and done that. That's on the factory head. So a lot of times when you see factory heads, and they've been rebuilt, quote unquote rebuilt, usually all they do is weld them. They'll weld where they cracked, or maybe they'll weld where they normally crack and try to beef them up right there. Then they weld between the valves and try to beef it up that way. And a lot of times you'll see them, and they look pretty rough because they've welded them and welded them and welded them. So I don't really recommend rebuilt heads. The new heads, AMC heads, are really good. I've been using them for probably 15 years. And I know there's some stuff on the internet about valves, but I think the valve situation is there was a run of them a while ago that had some bad valves, and then they fixed that problem. So the valves, I haven't seen any AMC heads with bad valves for probably I don't know, 9 years or so. So I would just use them out of the box. That's what I've always done. Never really had any problems with them, and they hold up really well. Okay, they hold up really well. They last probably 100,000 miles. And then the nice part is they actually made them thicker in all the places where the old heads would fail. They actually beefed them up. So they don't have the problems with cracking as much unless you super duper overheat them. And also they're way more rebuildable in the future. They don't pit as much either because the alloy they use is actually better alloy. So I would get the AMC head and then, just use it out of the box. And you may never, you may have the head gasket go again at some point, like maybe, 10, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road. Maybe you'll get a seat from the head gasket, but that'll be the worst thing you're going to see out of them. So, okay. Rebuilt look awesome. Yeah. I mean, I have seen some wear at the valve stems. I don't understand that either. The latest, I had a bunch of heads here just sitting here taking up dust, and during the winter, I gave them to my guy who's like machine shop guy. I'm like, just go through these, pick the ones that look the best, and then clean them up and all that stuff. And so he did that. And he's like, a lot of these valves have wear on the stems. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. But he said he just kind of ground them a little bit. And he's like, that should be fine. So that was his answer. He's been doing machine work for like 40 years. So I kind of, listen to what he has to say. So that's what's going on. Yeah. So if you just, take a look at the heads, I mean, if you're going to get to the point where you're rebuilding AMC heads after they've been on there for a long time, you might want to definitely get the valves inspected. And then if, your machine shop guy will be like, these are worn out, we need new ones or whatever. All right. So only the intake, the exhausts were perfect. That's so weird. Yeah. I mean, the only one I ever had a problem. I'm trying to think if that was the intake valve. I had one out of all these years that had a problem. And I wound up replacing it. And it didn't have a whole lot of miles on it either, but it was just, for whatever reason, it had just failed. But, oh, there's a motorcycle. Wait for that thing to go by. All right, so guys, I really appreciate all your questions today, and I hope you guys enjoyed being with us. Is there any more questions before we close up? It's about, quarter till here. Let's see. So Peter says it's a 1.9. So do you increase the CC when doing the rebuild? So normally you can actually get a set of pistons now that's for 1.9, but they increase the stuff to 2.0. I know it's real super confusing. This company called AA Pistons makes them. And so if I was going to be rebuilding a 1.9, I would probably use those 2.0 pistons, although they're not in stock right now. So I think they told me the end of the month they might get some more. But the difference between the 1.9 and the 2.1 is actually CCs and the stroke. They increase the stroke as well as increasing the CCs. So, whenever you do one thing, usually you have to do something else. And so not only do you get more horsepower with the 2.1, you actually get more torque as well, which is what probably makes the most difference. So Costas wants to know, do I need a torque wrench for the temp gauge I bought? So Costas bought a new temp sensor for a 1.9. I guess technically if you were going to do it 100% right, you would use a torque wrench on it. Do you need a torque wrench to put in that little gauge sender? I never have used one. So I guess it really just depends on if you're confident with, torquing things so that they're tight, but you're not trying to break it. Okay. I mean, I had a guy that all right, let me finish with Costas. So I had a guy that worked for me. I had a couple guys that worked for me that would tighten stuff up using like the He-Man method. That's what I call it, the He-Man method, where they just keep tightening it and tightening it and tightening it until, it snaps. And so both of those guys are like bulls in a china shop. And stuff would come back, and the guy would be like, yeah, something's not right with this. And they come back, and bolts would be broken off, and this would be broken off, that would be broken off. And I'd be like, what is going on, guys? And they're like, oh, no, we're just tightening it, you know. And they're so big, guys, I mean, they would just snap stuff off. So, you know, part of being a mechanic is learning how to not break stuff. You don't want to break more than you fix. So if you need a torque wrench, if Costas is super buff and he's going to break stuff off, definitely use a torque wrench. If you're just, you know, going to tighten it, you just want to tighten it so it's tight, and that should be tight enough, and should be fine just using a regular wrench. All right, so Billy Shepard wants to know, is an 85 intake plenum different than an 84? Yes and no. Yes and or no. Okay. Volkswagen was starting to ramp up production for a 2.1 style case in 1985, even though they still had a 1984 a 1.9 engine in 1985. And so some of the later 1985 1.9 engines actually had a 2.1 style case, and you could use your air intake plenum from that engine on a 2.1 no problem, because the difference between the 1.9 and 2.1 case is the top case halves, how they bolt together, it's slightly different. Like there's a couple extra bumps on the top where the two case halves come together. And so that's where your air intake plenum bolts to. So if you have a 1.9 engine intake plenum, you try to take it from a 1.9 engine and put it on a 2.1, the tabs where the plenum bolts down are not going to line up. Okay. So what I normally recommend is somebody's going to put a 2.1 engine into a 1.9, which is definitely doable, pretty easy conversion. You just get an air intake plenum from a 2.1, and I would also get the throttle body from a 2.1. And you can get the intake runners from a 2.1 as well if you wish, or you could just use the 1.9 ones, I think. You know, it doesn't really matter. So, yeah, sometimes it's easy to tighten a bolt to remove apart than loosen it. Yeah, if you don't care about it snapping off, if it's the exhaust system, then you're trying to remove it and it's all rusty and garbaged up, sometimes you can just snap that bolt off, and that'll help you get it out of there. But I'm talking about like heads and stuff, snapping off exhaust studs up in heads. That's no fun. Definitely did that myself until I finally stopped doing it. So, yep. So that's my thing on the intake plenum. You just want to check what you got. But like I said, if you're going to get a 2.1 engine from somebody to put in a 1.9, I would just make sure you get the intake with it and the throttle body, and then you should be good to go. Okay. You should be, that's really all you need. That's pretty much it. And then you swap everything else from the 1.9 over to it, and it's a pretty slam dunk engine conversion. Okay. All right. So any other questions before we go? You guys have been great today. Had a lot of good questions, and I always like that better than just me sitting here like rambling on and on for 45 minutes. I'm sure the people that listen to this on Saturday morning are you know, are appreciative to get actually real questions. And so remember to hit that thumbs up button, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. And, you know, please continue to support us with your parts purchases. I definitely appreciate that. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can also do that and become part of the elite group of 3 that's on there right now. Just to give you a slight update on YouTube, you guys have probably heard a lot about YouTube's new monetization policy, or should I call it demonetization policy, where they have basically figured out how to, basically goof everybody over that doesn't do like millions of views and stuff. So our revenue from the YouTube channel went down from basically $20 a month to now $10. So it went down about half. And I don't know, it might get pulled completely at some point. But we don't really depend on that. We depend on you guys buying your parts from us and supporting us that way. And we definitely appreciate that. So Billy Shepard says, if I put this complete plenum for my 1.9 on my 2.1, I'm okay. Actually, no, exact opposite. You want to have the 2.1 plenum and intake runners, or at least the plenum and the throttle body from the 2.1. Okay, so just just chant that to yourself. 2.1, airplane numb. 2.1, airplane numb. Kill everyone in this town. Okay, never mind. All right, so there you go. That's stuck in your head forever. All right, guys. Anybody else have any other questions before we take off? I'm looking at the swimming pool here, wanting to jump in it. So, you know, that's something that might happen here pretty quick once I get off of here. But I appreciate you guys, all your support, like I said. And if you get a chance to, like I said, like us and subscribe. And then also make sure you click on the little notification bell thing. And that will let you know anytime we're getting ready to do a live stream. Sometimes I don't know till like the last minute. I'm sorry about that. But, you know, that way it'll notify you, hey, Vanagon's streaming right now. You can jump on, okay? And I think everybody jumped on that wanted to today. We had a good turnout eventually. So that's great. And if you guys are listening to this tomorrow, I hope you guys have a great weekend. So I guess that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you get more smiles per gallon with your Vanagon. Thank you, Leah, for moderating us, even though you're in sunny New Jersey. And thank you all for being here. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. All right. We'll talk to you later.